Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Sell More Academy, the mastermind for more sales. My name is Ben McGary, and for the last 2 decades, I've spent nearly every day trying to figure out how to sell more stuff. I've been in the trenches selling my own products and services for years. I built teams, companies, and systems that sell from Main Street, small town USA, all the way to Wall Street. And I've been fortunate enough to coach and consult for countless others worldwide, all in totaling over $150 million. During that time, it has become painfully obvious that the marketplace is and always will be loud and noisy. These days, content creators and social media gurus promote clickbait tactics and short-sighted strategies that often cause more harm than good. It seems like everyone has all the tools at their fingertips these days, and no one really knows how to put it all together. Plus, what worked yesterday might not work today and will almost certainly be different by tomorrow. And that's precisely why I started Sell More Academy, to build a community and a set of resources to help stay ahead of the curve, to help cut through the noise and make sense of the next best step. At Sell More Academy, we focus on what we consider to be the 5 pillars of modern business success: AI, branding, marketing, sales, and systems. We bring this to you through a powerful combination of a vibrant mastermind community where you can connect with and learn from fellow high achievers and experts in the field, live masterclasses just like this one, where we dive deep into specific strategies and tactics for each pillar, one per day. A curated collection of resources, including free tools that we're building to help you sell more effectively. And our Sell More directory, connecting you with the pre-vetted providers and solutions that you need when it's time to outsource or just find the right tool for the job. Our goal here is to provide you with everything that you need to not only stay informed and competitive, but to sell a lot more stuff. And that brings us to today's masterclass, where we're talking about content, not just creating more of it. We're talking about building a system, an engine, something that works when you're not working. Most people are stuck in a content treadmill. They post, they get a little traction, and then the next day they have to do it all over again. It's quite frankly exhausting. It feels like a job, and it stops the second that you stop. A content engine is different. It's an asset, one that compounds over time. And today we're going to build one live. I'm going to pull back the curtain on the actual Sell More Academy content process as it is right now. The good, the bad, and the ugly. We're going to map it out together. We're going to look for bottlenecks, and then we're going to redesign it into an actual machine. By the end of this session, you should have a framework that you could steal and apply to your own business. If you're ready to stop running on that treadmill and build something that runs without you, let's get into it. Okay, so let me share the beginning of this with you. And we're going to go through what it means to systemize your content engine and build something that will actually run without you. And the big kind of takeaway here is that, as I said, most people get stuck in this kind of grind of content creation. And the goal is to build an asset that will continually compound over time. So what we're doing today will ideally pay off soon, but it will really pay off over time. This masterclass is about systemizing our process so that our content engine can run without constantly having to push the pedal. So let's start by defining exactly what the problem usually is. The core problem is that most creators are usually stuck on this treadmill that we're talking about, relying on willpower instead of systems. When we rely on willpower, content creation, it's manual, it's repetitive, and like I said, it stops the second that we stop working. That makes it feel like a job, and it's totally exhausting. We need to shift our mindset from creating content as it comes to us. And instead, we need to think about planning out our engine so that it works in a systematic way. We want to make sure that we turn each bit of content into as many valuable assets as we can, and that's what makes our whole machine worth more. So, how do you actually build that engine? Well, we start by kind of understanding the life cycle of creating content. So the 4 stages of this life cycle we see here would be idea, creation, distribution, and then repurposing. So to build a system, we want to make sure that we always break things down into these fundamental parts. Every single piece of content that we create should flow through these stages. First, we have the idea stage where we capture, validate, and prioritize what it is that we're going to talk about. Next, we have the creation, which is really the drafting, recording, editing of the asset itself. Then comes distribution, where we schedule, publish, and promote the content out to our audience. And finally, and maybe the most critical, is repurposing. And that's where we're going to slice and dice the core asset to multiply its value and post across different platforms. So now that we understand these stages, we need to really understand where we're at now. And so before we can fix anything, we need to clearly see the mess that we're in. Whether it's a good mess or bad mess, we need to see it. So the idea here is to map our current state, not the one that we wish we had, not the perfect scenario, but what we're actually doing now. We'll get honest about that, and then we'll switch over and focus on improving it first. So what we'll do here is I'm going to switch over to our Miro board, where you can see that we've already begun the process of mapping out what we do on a daily basis. So as you know, we create a ton of content here for Sell More Academy, and with that means that we're constantly going through this process, and it changes almost daily because we're trying to perfect it as we go. So just to kind of walk through some of the pieces that we have here, I encourage you, if you're watching this, to map yours out in a similar way. Maybe yours is more complex than ours to begin with. Maybe it's more simple than ours. Either way, map it exactly as you are. You want a snapshot of your current process. And so I have my team here, and while they'll stay on mute, I'm sure, they'll actually be messaging me of the places that I've messed up in the chat. And so as that happens, I'll definitely make adjustments. Let's kind of dive into what we have going here first. So we have 2 main ways that content starts for us. We have 3 different styles of Masterclass that we run. So we have our guests, our special guests, that's 1. And then the other 2 styles would be our lecture style, which we've done in the past, and then a workshop like today, where we're actually building something valuable. And so if someone is coming in through the guest intake, we have a guest intake system built for them. It's essentially a survey that asks them some different questions along the way. If you've been a special guest here, you know kind of what this process looks like. But you'll fill out some questions, some information about yourself, about what you sell, about your specific topic and your expertise. And what happens from there is the pre-brief that we prepare, which is basically a letter that goes out that says, hey, this is what to expect when you come on and speak with us. Just who our audience is, how long it'll take, how the flow will go. We handle all of that ahead of time. And so the red boxes here, you'll see red boxes are our either AI or automated steps. And so that's already automated. Not to say that we couldn't do better, but as soon as that guest intake comes through, the next step of the process happens automatically. And so it prepares both the guest-facing materials and the host materials so that we're able to dive in. Instead of having a blank slate, we're able to dive in and be much more informed. We'll come back to the top layer here. The next thing that's going to happen is we're going to save everything to Google Drive. That's just the internal storage that we use. Obviously, if you're using your own servers or you're using Dropbox or anything else, use that. I'm not telling you what tools to use. I'm just showing you the systems that we're building here. And then the next thing that we do is we actually issue that pre-brief out to the guest for them to review. And that way, if maybe our research was wrong and the information about them isn't quite right, we want to adjust that ahead of time. If there's any no-goes, things we can't talk about, we definitely want to bring that up ahead of time so that we're not caught off guard. And that's just a standard part of interviewing people and doing business with people. There's some things that are just off limits. And so we want to make sure that we send all of that out ahead of time to ensure that we get the most value out of each guest that we bring on. Once they have okayed that and we're moving on, then we have our live content session. Now, before we move forward with that, I'm going to just double back and talk about the other path to come in. And so the other path to come in would be for either the lecture or the workshop style, since we've already covered the guest intake. And so here, what we're doing ultimately is it often ends up in Google Sheets, but then it makes its way into ClickUp because that's the internal communication and project management that we use here at Sell More Academy. And so the idea is to ultimately capture those ideas, whether they're in the middle of the night, whether if you know me, you know that I've got them written all over my whiteboard and I just need to get them transferred into the digital state. And so the first step is to kind of capture those ideas in whatever fashion works best for you. The next step is to manually refine those topics. It's very, very rare that the idea we come up with is the idea that makes it to the show. And so we want to work on that. We want to refine it. We want to make sure that the angle matches exactly, our brand. We've talked a lot about brand consistency so far. So we want to make sure that it matches our brand, that the message actually meets our audience where they are. And we want to make sure that really overall that the language, the tone, the style, everything matches with the host and the topic that's at hand. And so we want to just take that second to manually refine that process. And there's actually a step over here that the team mentioned that I probably need to add in here. So we're going to add that in right now. And so we have our SMA team approval before we send this out to the guest. And so obviously we don't want to have the AI generated version that's being done here go out automatically. So it's a good catch by the team to make sure that we have our approval stage in here. Now, again, as we get through this, we're going to figure out there's a lot of places that we can improve. I know it seems like this is well documented. This took us probably 20 minutes to do, not even before the call. So it won't take you long to get to this point. So we have an approval step. And now really what this should be is a conditional logic. So if it's approved, if not approved, we have those pieces laid out. There's actually some back here as well. The guest intake we could add in. You know what? Let me do that before I forget. Sorry. Thank you, team, for making these adjustments so that we get this right. Slide these over. It doesn't always have to be perfect. Ryan Dice does a great job. He is the founder of Digital Marketer and plenty of other companies at this point. But one of the things that he really talks about is mapping your value engines. And when you get to that, he has a book called Get Scalable. And when you get to that, he actually talks about using the digital side last, using a whiteboard and sticky notes first, which is pretty interesting since that came up in a recent call for us. So anyway, the way that this works is the guest intake comes in and then there is a team approval. And so that actually comes directly to me to approve first before we start the process of generating everything. Actually, to tell you the truth, it comes, now that I'm thinking about it, these two are switched around. And this is why it's so important to sit here and work on your process, because the chances of you having it exactly right, I mean, we knew we were doing this call and we still are missing pieces. And there's a good chance that when we get off this call, we'll still be missing pieces. And that's because it's not a one-time 45-minute thing. It's a constant living document that you improve as your process changes. Okay, so next thing that we're doing, I know this sounds crazy, but we do this approval, and that's before anything gets sent off, before the team actually works on it. This just gives me a chance to look at what's been prepared, make sure that it makes sense. And then if so, we fire it on. If not, then we're only out the cost of the AI credits, and so we're fine. Okay, so up here, we've manually refined our topics. Next thing that we're going to do is the research and prep. So we have our AIs prepared for this as well. When I say prepared, someday, maybe next week we'll talk a little bit about AI prompting and get into that. But when I say prepared, I do not mean that there are 3 or 4 lines that says go research this person and prepare a piece of content for us. We are running 45-minute master classes daily. So our research is deep into the topic. We research deep into the person. We look into the kind of social intelligence. What are people saying about this and about this person? Is this an in-demand topic that we want to talk about? And so that research and prep sometimes means that we don't move things, we don't schedule right away. So we actually don't have scheduling on here. And that's another step that we can come add. But sometimes we're not able to schedule right away because we get stuck in the research and prep. And so that's something that we're working to refine and we'll do later in this call. But once we're ready and the research and prep is prepared, then we'll save it to Google Drive and we will move into our live content session. So this right here for us is our live content session. Now, if you're making this and you make shorts or you make long form, it doesn't matter. This applies to both. If you make static images or you make reels, doesn't matter. It applies to both. You simply map out your process of each step in the way, and then you get to your live content session. That live content session could just say content for you, okay? All right, so after the content has been created, now there's going to be a lot of things that take place on our side. So some of it we've done a good job of, some of it we still need help with, and we're working on that on a daily basis. And so the first thing that happens literally as soon as I get done speaking, our transcript is sent over into our AI and a blog summary is written, an infographic is generated, and social posts are generated in order to promote this piece of content. So we're already moving into the repurposing or into the distribution side of things. So the first thing that we want to do is turn it into a written blog. The reason we do that is because we actually gatekeep all of our content in our private community. The blog is the one thing that's public, and so it gives kind of a teaser of what we go through in the full masterclass. So we'll go down the blog path first. The first thing that happens is the AI writes that, and it's based on the transcript. So not on the idea or the topic, it's on the specific transcript that we talked about. So it's always relevant. It's always in the proper voice and tone because it can actually gets fed that context to begin with. So once it's done, we upload that blog. We use our tech stack system, which is our white labeled version of high level, in order to run our blog. And so the team takes the blog once it's approved and gets it uploaded. To get that uploaded, it actually triggers off the next piece of our system, which we could probably fill this out a little more detailed later. We have an RSS feed set up so that anytime a new blog is posted, an email newsletter about that blog goes out that evening at 5 or 6 o'clock, kind of end of the day when people are winding down. So it gives us an opportunity for people who aren't quite in the community to learn about the community, to learn from the community, and to potentially, create that desire for them to join us and to sell more together. So after we've sent that out, there's a manual process that we create a mastermind post. And so that is something that we will come back to, this mastermind post. All right, and so we have yeah, that's true. That's a good point. I'm sorry. The team just pointed out something really fantastic. We actually have another step set up in here where once this, actually before we send the newsletter out, there's another automated step where we use that RSS feed to post blog to social channels. So that is currently in our process. So all of that happens once that blog has been uploaded, then it's going to automatically post out to social channels. And then later that evening, it'll send the email newsletter out. So, okay, so that's the blog path. So as soon as the call gets done, all of this is in work, literally as soon as I hang up, sometimes before I get back to my computer, just taking a walk around the house or getting a drink of water. Sometimes I come back and the things are already done. And so that's kind of a wonderful thing here. The next piece that happens is an infographic. And so what we're trying to do at Sell More Academy is we want to hit every modality that people learn from. So some people learn from videos like this. Other people learn from just listening. And so they will watch this or listen to this while they drive, and that's perfectly fine. Some people are very like to read. I'm a big reader. And so, give me a block of text and I'm a happy man. And then we have other people that are very, very visual, meaning they're not visual internally. And so they need visuals in order to be able to learn. And so nothing wrong with that. We're just trying to make sure that we hit every modality that we can. So as soon as that transcript is generated, we have an infographic that is generated from the transcript. So we can get the core idea of the masterclass without the big long wall of text or a long 45-minute video to watch. This is something that we can get out immediately, and we use these internally because they're so valuable. They are really kind of the core principle of an entire talk wrapped up into one graphic. And these are kind of those, they almost serve as mental heuristics to help remember and really make adjustments to our mental processes. So once we've generated that infographic, we save it to our Google Drive, and the only place we use that is in our internal mastermind post for now. So we'll talk about that more later. Okay, the next thing that we do is we generate social posts. So we're not actually generating the images at this time, although that is something that we're working on. We are generating the captions for each channel, right? And each platform works a little differently. X is a short form platform that's has fewer characters and a much different personality than what LinkedIn has, where it's really long form content and a very, very different culture that lives there. And so we have the AI constantly scanning to look for the best practices and then writing those social posts based on the transcript. And so again, all of this that's taking place afterward is based on the exact transcript. So it's relevant to what was actually talked about, not what we planned or what we wish we would have talked about, but what we actually covered. So the next thing that happens is we use ClickUp again internally. So we send that over to the creative team. The creative team does a manual handoff. That's because our producer and our lead designer are in-house, and then we use an external creative team. We use the futures. They're listed in the directory, the Sell More directory. So if you're watching this, please go jump into the Sell More directory and look for the futures. You'll find them. Been using them for about 5 years total now. So anyway, once it's handed off to them, what their job is with our full recording. Actually, I'm realizing now that this is in the wrong spot for this part. So yeah, this comes up here. Just realizing we did that a little bit off team. So let me make a quick adjustment. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so we download that clip and that full recording, and then we are sending that to our creative team as well, the full length recording, and that's where they cut it up for us. So on the social posts, we're generating them and then we schedule them. Again, we use TaxStack, which is our white label GHL version. Both our GHL affiliate and our TaxStack special are listed in the directory as well. Virtually anything I talk about should be found in the directory. So if you're ever looking for like, what tool do I use or who do I turn to, go to the directory. Sell More directory will give you everything that you need. All right, so we schedule those in there, and what we do with them is we want to make sure that we're not just posting once. Roughly, nobody really talks about what the algorithm really is. Everyone thinks they know, but roughly they say about 10% of your audience will be shown each post. And if they engage in it, then they'll show maybe 10% more. And that's just kind of the way, general rule of thumb. It may be off one way or another, but a general rule of thumb to follow. And so what we want to do is we post 7 times over 7 weeks. So if someone came on Monday, the following Monday, you should see the first clips being shared on social media. And those will be shared every single Monday for 7 weeks. And so what happens is as we go on, we're creating multiple posts. And so by week 7, we have 7 posts, 7 clips showing that day alone. So we're building that content engine to where it's hard to get away from us. And the reason that we're doing that, well, first off, is because we're creating a ton of content. By doing this every day, we're creating multiple pieces of content shared in different locations. But again, we want to make sure that we take advantage of the algorithms, not just put something out there and hope somebody sees it. What we're going to do is we're going to be methodical about it. And so each week we're going to push this stuff out. The reason we choose to do it week over week instead of every single day is just simply because we use a very specific cadence here, right? We go over AI on Monday, we go over branding on Tuesday, and so on and so forth. And so that's why we schedule the way that we do. And that's it for social media. I'm going to move on past that. All right. And so finally, we have this full clip. So we download the full clip and the recording. Once this is done, we update the timestamps and the overview, create little tiny clips. We might have to trim the very beginning or trim the very end just because the recording wasn't right or we were chatting or whatever the case may be. So we adjust that and we upload it into the class vault. We are using, we are using our AI to update the timestamps and overview. So we'll definitely make sure that we put that in there. And the reason we say updating the timestamps is just because we have to clip the video. And so sometimes the transcription isn't exactly right. So we redo that each time in order to make sure that it's more accurate and easier for you to kind of thumb through whenever you come back to this video. So once we have that done, we upload it into the class vault, and that's the full unedited version of the call, other than just, again, the very beginning and the end. And then we come to this mastermind post. So again, we'll come back to the mastermind post. The other thing that we're doing is, as we mentioned up here, as we're making this adjustment, we are sending this over to our creative team so they can make 2 shorts and 1 promo video that we can then share on social media. We actually end up coming back and it's kind of funny. We actually come back and upload this back into our blog once it's done. So once we have the longer version of the video done, we come back and enhance the blog to make it just better. Plus it gives it a new refresh, so it gets indexed again. It's kind of a win-win there. So once that is done, we also will share, we don't have this on here, we'll share the shorts and the promo with the guest if there is a guest there so that they can promote it if they want to. Obviously, they're going to be on social media already, but we'll give it to them so that they have the option. Okay, so now we're finally at the mastermind post. So this is our internal mastermind. And essentially what we're doing here is if you're in the mastermind already, you've already seen these posts. If you haven't, then you probably just have notifications turned off. But the idea is that we will post a summary and say, hey, we just finished this masterclass. Here's the blog that we wrote about it. And here's the link to go watch it in the class vault if you're ready. So we put those 2 things and we put that internal infographic there so that that post is readily available for all members of the mastermind. And those are ultimately the ones that we're trying to serve, right? A lot of the other stuff that we do with social, we're trying to bring people in. Here, we're trying to make sure that we serve our community. And so that's why we keep some exclusive things for them and why we try to make it so easy for them to navigate the different pieces of content that we're creating. Because obviously you could get lost in this pretty easily as we did. And once we've done that, that's the end. That's the end of the process for this piece of content as it's currently mapped out. By no means am I saying that we've done everything right here. I'm just simply stating this is what we have, and we've already missed some places that we could fill in. Trying to keep this all in your head, though, is very complicated. And so having it mapped out on here and building a blueprint before you build your system is a phenomenal way. We're kind of backtracking this. I'm not necessarily drinking our own Kool-Aid here because we should have mapped this out ahead of time. And unfortunately, I did most of it on a whiteboard instead of doing it on here. So now we have this kind of core function set up. So what I'm going to do is switch back over here, because now that we have this, our objective is to figure out, as you're mapping yours, where does our process stall out? We need to make sure that all three of these questions get answered. That, content graveyard where all of our good ideas are just dying, that's not where we want our process to stall out. I can't speak for anyone other than myself, but I know that I've come up with great ideas that I knew would help people and would serve our community. And yet, somehow, I never got to production with that piece of content. It never made it through the process. And that's part of it. So we need to make sure that we audit that. Second, we want to know, what are we doing manually that could be automated? Where can we use AI? Where can we use automations? That's the time suck that really kills our momentum. And then third, what is missing entirely? And so as I was going through there, I already mentioned there was things that were missing that we're currently doing that aren't mapped. And then we have gaps that we know exist that we haven't quite figured out how to solve for just yet. So we want to make sure that we find, whatever those broken links are that keep us from reaching our full potential. And by answering these, we can move from, kind of identifying what our problem is to fixing it with our, system, and having a system that makes sure that that problem doesn't come up again. So when we're talking about friction, we need to think about the building blocks that we use to eliminate friction. Most systems are designed to eliminate friction from our lives. If they're not, if you've built systems or orchestrated systems that make your life harder, welcome to the club. We've all done it. Stop doing it. You don't have to do that anymore. So think of these kind of three principles as the DNA of any system that will actually run itself. Okay, that's the difference. Ones that you have to manually put in, your car versus the self-driving car, right? So the first thing we need is a clear trigger. The specific event that would wake up your system, that would start the whole process, that is your trigger. If we don't define that, then the machine just never starts. Without an ignition, you can't start the car. So next we have our handoffs. And the handoff is where a lot of systems end up failing because the responsibility gets dropped somewhere between the people that are involved and the tools that should be involved. So what we want to do with handoffs in our system is to define exactly the moment that the baton passes. So if you're, a track runner, that's the idea, right? Once we pass off, now the relay can move onward. I doubt there's a lot of track runners. I ran track in school, so that's why I bring it up. All right, and then finally, automation. So this is that sweet spot that we all want to get to, that we all try to jump to, and we, the dream scenario that we hope and pray that we have one day. We want to maximize the tasks that happen instantly without us having to touch them, without our input. By doing these things, we can absolutely maximize the effectiveness of our system. And so as you can see, we've got a few examples here. Triggers could be something like a new row in a spreadsheet. It could be something like a form submitted or a status change to approve. All three of these things we actually use internally. We also have, hey, a new transcript has been created and is prepared inside of Fathom. So Fathom is the recorder that we use for this. And then right there, we send our Fathom directly into our system. So that is the trigger. You can have multiple triggers. Different systems have different kinds of triggers. And so it's whatever that point is of action. Where does this whole thing start? Where does the light switch flip on at? The handoffs could be something as simple as assign tasks to the editor, assigned to the creative team, Slack notification, we use ClickUp. It could be an email, it could be a text message. It's something that says, hey, it's now your turn to do your part. And then on the automation, create a Google Doc from a template, uploading files to Drive. We still manually do some of that stuff, and so that's a good opportunity for us to update some of those. And then things like posting to LinkedIn or other social channels using the social planner inside of the systems that we've built. So, keeping these three elements in mind are what will turn a messy process into a reliable machine. And if we do that, then our content starts to flow much easier. So let's look at some of the tools and the just different systems that are out there to help bring these to life. So we're techie people. We love it. And so we use a lot of different systems here based on just my experience in coaching and consulting. I've had to learn and develop on a lot of different systems and platforms that are out there. So if you see something that you prefer, grab that one. If you see ones that you dislike, just discard them. No big deal. It does not matter. We're trying to essentially be a bit inclusive of the tools that are used here instead of saying use this one or use that one. So when it comes to automation, kind of the glue that holds everything together, we're looking at things like Make or N8N or Zapier or Pabbly or High Level or Robomation, or there are so many of these out there at this point. One thing that I would always think about is if we've done our blueprint first, then we know roughly how many stages of automation we're going to have. And each one of these has different costs and limits that are available. So you'll pick your automation based on that. Don't always just pick because it's the easiest one to use. For instance, I'll just call out Zapier. Zapier is usually one of the easiest ones to use. Although I will say their interface has changed recently. But that comes at a cost. That convenience comes at a cost. N8N is cheaper and almost free if you know how to run the community versions. Yet it's considerably more complex. And so if you don't have tech skills, maybe that's not the right fit for you, or maybe you need to hire someone to help build on there so that you can avoid the high cost of Zapier down the road. So use those based on what fits best for you, not what's recommended to you. Trust me on that one. When it comes to the intelligence, the brain that's running it all, I know everybody loves ChatGPT. That's fine if that's what you use. I'm not here to tell you what AI to use. I will say that when it comes to writing tasks, Claude has outperformed ChatGPT in every single test I've ever done. However, ChatGPT does better on images, right? They've got Sora and the video side of things. They've got stuff figured out over there. They're not going anywhere anytime soon. So use whichever one you like. When it comes to the big boys that are going to win, it's always going to be Google. If you don't understand why, then just understand the fact that Google has had search dominance, and so they have more data. They've had search dominance forever, and so they have more data than everyone. They're the most profitable company in the entire world. That doesn't mean market share or revenue. That means profit. They're the most profitable company. They will win the AI race. They may not be as flashy, but Gemini and Nano Banana are outperforming virtually everything else. Just my 2 cents. Use whatever you want. Okay, next we have the standards, the guide. And this is really where you want to keep track of things, where you want to build your SOPs or your processes so that each step of the Miro works well. And so Miro could be listed on here, of course. We have Notion or Airtable. Not that they're the same by any means, but 2 different systems that can be used. Loom is a great one. We also use the ClickUp Clips for SOPs because we use ClickUp. We use Scribe. Most of these are probably in the directory. Scribe is definitely in the directory. Scribe is a great tool for capturing SOPs just while you're working. And so you'll start to see some of the Scribe SOPs show up inside of the community resources here soon. So pick which tools work best for you. Prioritize how they fit into your process instead of what some content creator, social media guru told you, and focus a lot on the integration side of it. Is this something that I can integrate? Am I going to need help with it? How does the cost play out for the convenience that I'm after? It's kind of a balancing act to find the right tools. Okay. So we've seen the principles and we've seen the tools. So now it's time to just kind of take one concrete action step. We don't want this to be just like some inspiring presentation that gets us fired up and then we forget about it tomorrow. So the first thing that you should do after this masterclass is to duplicate this board, this Miro board. Make your own copy of it. The second thing that you're going to do is to map out your mess.
just like we did, be brutally honest, mess things up. Hopefully there's somebody there on your team, like my team, to say, hey, idiot, you forgot something. If not, hey, find a coach, find somebody that can help you work through it. We have one-to-one coaching sessions that are available. If you're a McGary Plus member, you could bring something like this to a hot seat that's included in your subscription. And so whatever it takes for you to get an honest assessment so you can map out the whole process, please make sure that you do it as it is now. Don't skip this step. And then third, fix one bottleneck. So we have some bottlenecks here. I'm actually going to switch over and show you the bottleneck that we're going to focus on. And then, find the one that you can either automate or delegate or outsource or maybe even eliminate this week. And so if you're familiar with the ADOE framework that I've shared in previous lessons, it's automate, delegate, outsource, and eliminate in that particular order. So is it something that could be automated? Then automate it. If it's something important that needs to stay close to you, would be handled in-house, delegate it. If it's something that's lower importance but needs to be done, look for specialists that are outside of your company, agencies, things like that you can outsource to get that expertise, and then eliminate whatever is left. And so if I can't automate it, delegate it, or outsource, can I eliminate this? And if I take a very real look at that, most of the time the answer is yes. So that's how we perfect our system. You do one small win, and then instead of trying to plan a massive system, you just do the next small win and the next small win. And just like other topics that we've had, you just take one bite at a time. And eventually you wake up and you have this system that has built its own momentum and continues on, and quite frankly, puts you in a spot where content creation becomes easy. You just kick on your camera or go to Canva or whatever type of content it is that you're creating, and the rest flows naturally. Okay, so as we're wrapping up here, before I switch back to the Miro board, just remember this one key takeaway: systems create freedom. And that matters for your content as well. The goal isn't just to make more content, it's to create more time consistently. And that is the key takeaway for today, is that by creating a content machine, a systemized approach, you will not only create more content, you'll likely create better content, and you'll have more time to do so. I want to just real quickly switch over, and we're going to look and identify a couple of the bottlenecks that my team and I are going to work on here. And what I'll do is I'm just going to put a sticky note here to say that this is a bottleneck to solve. We're going to look at these. My team's here in the chat as well, so they're going to let me know if there's anywhere that they see a bottleneck. So right now we have a little bit more that we need to further define here of our guest intake, because we have this approval process. And so we need to have it mapped out of what happens when they are not approved. And that's a very big deal. So a declination would go over here. So we have a process for that in place, that we send them out a message saying, hey, I'm sorry, at this time we can't schedule you to be a guest, for whatever reason. Maybe they're not a fit, or their topic doesn't match with us, or whatever the case. We just don't want to bring them into the community. So we may say no. We have a process for that. So I think some easy bottlenecks to solve. I think the save to Google Drive is probably one of our easiest bottlenecks to solve here. And they're all kind of the same. So I'm just going to mark them as one instead of as separate problems to solve here. So we're going to just say that our main objective is to solve this particular issue. And if we can do that, that's going to save some time. That means that we can eventually just jump to the next stage in our process and maybe automate the team approval side of things, kind of all of it. So that's the goal, is we're going to continue looking for bottlenecks that slow the process down. Right now, really the only ones that are part of our process that we should be looking at would be whether or not we want to accept the guest and to manually refine the topics. The ideas that you put down, they could be total garbage. That's perfectly fine. They could be funny, they could be off the wall, they could just be something that you'll never do, but you wanted to write down. This manual refinement process is very important. And really, this should almost be, it depends. Every company is going to be different, right? Every situation, maybe you're in a company, maybe you're an independent person that's out there. But this part here should really be kind of a team process. Maybe this is a short meeting where we go through manually refined topics together and we look at any approvals that are waiting in the guest side of things so that we can be on the same page. So that's something that's potentially, something that you could change within your organization to make this a quick, 15-minute meeting a week or something like that, a content meeting where you're just talking about the topics and the guests that are there. And then that should pretty much take care of it. Team, have I missed anything else? Any other bottlenecks that you guys see? Let's see, I think we have we could probably, at some point, we could probably automate getting things over to our creative team right away. That is another thing that we're doing, I guess, over here in these. Yeah, we need to add that in, which I'll do after the call because we're running late here. But we also are generating from the transcript, we are generating the timestamps for the clips for the creative team. So it used to take them an extra day. It was a bottleneck for them to curate and tell us what they were going to cut out. And then we would have to approve those timestamps and then they would go back to them. Now we're actually using our AI and our very specific prompt, which again, we can talk about prompting next week, to actually go through and handle that part for us. And so it gives recommendations for the clips. And that way it cuts an entire, really more than a day from our process, because it would take them a whole day to process it. And then it would take us time to review it and then get back to them so that they could start making the adjustments. So it's really about a day and a half for every single day of the week that it saves us, since we do this every day. So you think about that, and we're talking about 7.5 hours a week that we save by doing that. So, we'll continue looking for other ways that we can remove bottlenecks and optimize our process. We'll probably talk about this again in a later workshop, just so that we can look at the refinement. But for today, we started this conversation focused on content, but the real goal, I think, as everyone can tell, is to build something much bigger than that, to create the freedom that we talked about, and really to look for areas where we can not cut out the work, but automate busy work, where we can remove the things that don't require our higher level attention and thought. And once we're able to do that, we're able to put policies and procedures in place, we're able to grow exponentially. More than just having our team back, we're able to be consistently present in what we're doing and not worried about what's coming. So with that being said, I encourage you again to go back through and duplicate the template on Miro, map out whatever your mess is, and then fix one bottleneck. Next week, do it again. Fix another bottleneck. Soon enough, you will be on this masterclass demonstrating your content system to the rest of the community. So that's all I have for you today. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please leave them either below the video or feel free to bring them into the mastermind community, where we'll be talking about this in the systems channel. Happy to answer questions that you have, happy to get more in depth with this, or even to help map out parts of your process. Everyone, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for watching this again in the vaults. Please come back to it as often as you need. But for now, have a wonderful day and a wonderful weekend. And I hope that you all go sell a lot more stuff.